Sometimes a great success can create just as big a gap between that and the next book, if there ever is a next book.
Well, and Cold Eye wasn't, in fact, a film. I mean, as I say, it became a film. It sold in, I don't know, 10 different countries, 8 different languages, made tons of money off it because of various film deals. So to me, it was a great success. I lived off it for years. But because it didn't sell gangbusters in the U.S., it was very hard for me to get a second novel published. It wasn't that I had trouble writing them. I wrote 2, and I couldn't get them published because they weren't detective novels. They were suspense novels, but serious books, maybe thrillers. But publishers want to know, where does it go in the bookstore, you know? And if they can't see that, then they don't want to know, because they want to know a quick way they can say, well, this goes here, this is this kind of book, and if it isn't, it's a problem. So I wrote 2 that kind of fell in that way. They'd say, you know, the writing's wonderful and all that, the characters are great, but we just don't know how to sell this book.
And unfortunately, one of the things that I have certainly learned is that editorial, if they aren't successful in selling their sales department, they can't acquire a book even if they happen to love it.
That's right.
We published a book, Poison Pen Press published a book that won, and I was up for the LA Times Book Prize, won the Seamus Award, Best First Novel, got starred reviews, you know, whatever. And when I asked the New York publisher that I knew had turned it down, thinking maybe I'm, you know, this is back when I was sort of a novice editor, and I thought, maybe there's just something I'm not seeing here. Although, I mean, I know a good book, so I thought, what's going on? And I went to lunch with them in New York, and I said, we're about to publish this book, and I can't for the life of me think why I am publishing it as a new publishing venture, and you, a major company, are not. And the answer was that because it was set in New Orleans, and they had several books there, they could not sell it to their sales department. And regrettably, they had passed on it. And that was a real lesson to me right there.
There's so many different factors that have nothing to do with the quality of the book.
Absolutely.
That's true. My agent has taken on a couple of new writers recently who she thinks they're really great, but she can't get them in partly because of her previous successes with me and other people that she's gotten into, say Random House, who didn't have much of a crime list 6 years ago and now have 5 or 6 authors that take up a lot of their space. They don't have room for another crime author right now. So it's, you know, timing is so much a part of it. I came along to Random House Canada just when the editor there was looking to beef up their crime list. 1, wanted a Canadian writer. 2, and wanted it to be a high-end kind of thing, not anything that smacked of pulp or cozies or anything like that. They wanted something that kind of bridged literary and crime. And my agent happened to get it on her desk right at that moment. So. Plus,
you had decided, or at least 40 Words for Sorrow introduced characters that potentially could go on to other novels, as in fact they have, because this is now your 4th. By the time you read this, it's your 4th for this police pair. And, well, you don't call it North Bay or Toronto, you call it Thunder Bay.
Algonquin Bay.
Algonquin Bay. I always want to say, where is Thunder Bay? Is there one?
Thunder Bay is a lot further north and west.
Okay, so it's Algonquin
That's up
Bay.
on Lake Superior.
So I think that probably had something to do with it, too. Actually, what you're saying is really not about publishers. It's really the fact that publishing has allowed the distribution, the sales, and the bookstore end to now determine what they do. And
but
I mean, I could make you my whole independent bookstore
luckily,
speech.
They're starting now to, like my current publisher, Henry Holt, is starting very much to pay attention to the independent booksellers like yourself and others who specialize in mysteries, because they realize that there's a lot more input from them and from readers on what readers like and will buy, and that's now influencing what writers they will publish. Whereas if they listen to you know, Chapters or Barnes and Noble, they wouldn't hear anything positive about a lot of the people they're publishing because they didn't sell 1 million copies their first time out.
Well, there's that, but additionally, when that whole design is more of a warehouse than it is a retail store. So the book essentially has to sell itself, and that's why it's important that it visibly belong in some category of the store, and that the external packaging, in fact, says what it is, because the reader who goes in, mostly, I mean, those stores roughly sell 80% nonfiction. I mean, that's where you want to go if you want to buy a Volkswagen manual, or you want to start your garden or same thing. Fiction, which really requires some kind of advisory or reader selection or something, is harder for them to do because that's not what their staff does. So fiction fits independent bookstores better just because of that ability. But it has made publishers inclined to do clone cookie cutter kinds of books or things that are demonstrably easy to package.
Right.
Yeah, that's why you're getting all the recipes on books or the knitting patterns on books and all of that, because it fits a particular segment. And I amuse myself often when I go to another city or something and I go into a bookstore. One of the things I always like to see is where they have chosen to put authors that we sell here. We just have one large file. I mean, everything that's fiction, there it is.
Yeah.
And books shoulder next to each other regardless of what their content happens to be. And I'm always kind of amused when I go to another store and I will see, things are categorized, because by their nature, labels are exclusionary. And you have to be able to get into the mindset of the person who labeled or categorized before you can determine where something is.
Right.
I learned that as a librarian years ago.
That's right,
For everything you call a mystery, you're going to leave some readers out because they're not going to want to go there to find one of your books. And your books are kind of interesting in that respect. I mean, are they mystery? Are they thriller?
Right. I don't think only one of the four cardinal books would be, I think, a sort of hardcore mystery in the sense that you don't know who the killer is till close to the end of the book. I tend to prefer, and certainly in my own work, write the kind of books where you do find out, the reader finds out who the killer is, 100 or certainly by 200 pages into the book, they know who it is, for a couple of reasons. One, because then you can up the suspense dramatically, because you know what the killer is planning to do and the cops don't, and where he is and who he's a threat to, and the cops don't. And two, you can get into the psychology of the killer, which to me is at least half of the interest of a thriller. I love writing the villains.
It really opens up point of view, expands it so that you can get a number of them in there. Which one is it that you consider to be the purest mystery?
The Delicate Storm.
And that's interesting, and that's the one that won the most awards, isn't it?
It got nominated for the most, and it won the Arthur Ellis in Canada. It didn't, so it actually won one award, but it got nominated for about 6 or 7.
Describe the Arthur Ellis Award. I think it's such a neat little story. Americans probably aren't so familiar with why it's called the Arthur Ellis Award.
Arthur Ellis was, when I got mine, I said I was honored to receive this because I'd read the entire works of Arthur Ellis and always admired them, which got a big laugh because Arthur Ellis wasn't in fact a writer. He was the last hangman in Canada. And the award doesn't get any points for subtlety, I must say. It's a gibbet with a noose, a little brass noose with a little wooden man hanging in it. And the real crowning touch is that there's a drawstring on it that you can pull to make the legs twitch.
Is there really?
Yes, there is.
Like one of those monkey toys?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
How funny.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, I thought it's kind of interesting. The British call their awards the daggers.
Right.
And in fact, was it 40 Words for Sorrow that won the Silver Dagger?
Silver Dagger, yeah.
Which has been abolished, but at that point,
has it?
Yeah. They now have gone into partnership, the British Crime Writers Association, no longer with the Scotch, the Macallan Company, whiskey company.
That was one of the best things about the award. You got a bottle of 18-year-old Scotch.
I've heard a lot of authors say that was so good.
Yeah.
Now it's the Duncan Lowry Bank, and they have changed their awards, and now they have a dagger for Best Novel, and they have a dagger for Best First Novel. That used to be the John Creasy Award after the founder of the Crime Writer Association, who wrote 7,000 books under 14 names or whatever it was. And they have the Ian Fleming Steel Dagger, which the Ian Fleming estate pays for Best Thriller. And they have the Ellis Peters Historical Dagger, which the estate of Ellis Peters and Headline pays for historical novel.
Oh, so they've categorized it.
And then there was, you haven't been paying attention because you should think about this. They have a huge furor, did have a furor over books in translation. Of the 2 years ago, 4 of the 5 Best Novel nominees were all books written by like a Scandinavian author.
Well, the year I got the silver, Henning Mankell won the gold.
Right. Well,
which turned out to be good for me because he never leaves home, so he didn't show up for the award, so I got all the attention.
Well, that's very nice, but he can't win it now. What they actually did was they barred all foreign writers.
Why didn't they do it sooner? I would have won.
There you are. And in fact, there was such a fuss about it that after some time elapsed, they now have a dagger, a translation dagger. So what they've done, in fact, is create all these categories. So